From beating people within minutes to taking on the biggest champions, let's take a look at what happens when Intoxicated Magnus Carlsen defeated a chess master. Start of the match with Riviere. We all know Magnus Carlsen is one of the most talented chess players in the world, and whether you have years of experience or a stack of championships lined up in your favor, beating Magnus Carlsen in a game of chess is nearly impossible. But what happens if Magnus Carlsen is too drunk to play the game? Well, even though it sounds unreal, it seems like Magnus Carlsen has been able to defend his skill set despite being drunk. Let's take a look at what happened when Intoxicated Magnus Carlsen sat down opposite Riviere, who starts the game hastily with an e4. Magnus Carlsen drunkenly responds to this move with a c5, which is also known as the Sicilian defense. Damien then plays his pawn to a3, and it seems like the game is in Riviere's favor, as the crowd started cheering for him. But little do they know that Magnus Carlsen still has tricks up his sleeves, and as he plays his pawn to g6, the game immediately turns in his favor. After a few more moves, Damien then opts for a more passive approach. Damien then makes a move which results in an applaud by Magnus Carlsen. However, 2 moves later, Magnus then ends up making a mistake. The two then exchange pretty strategic moves, and Magnus Carlsen is too drunk to even hold his pieces together. However, he eventually ends up creating a beautiful pawn chain, leaving little to no room for Damien to play a smart move. But before we take a closer look at when Intoxicated Magnus Carlsen defeated a chess master, if you like our content so far, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification button so you can get notified every time we post a new video. And you can stay updated about some iconic moments in some of your favorite games, and how some players manage to stay undefeated despite all odds. Checkmate. With Magnus Carlsen lining up all of his chess pieces, ready to take over Damien's king in one swift move, it was obvious to everyone that Damien had lost the battle. However, Damien is also closing in on Magnus's king, and with one swift move, Damien is able to level the playing field, and both Damien and Magnus once again have a 50-50 chance of winning the match. Damien knows at this point that he cannot take Magnus Carlsen lightly. However, Carlsen ends up making the wrong move yet again. At this point, Damien is able to put Magnus Carlsen's king in a very threatening position, and to make matters worse, Carlsen ends up making another bad move. At this point, all the odds are stacked in Damien's favor, and if he makes the right move, he'll be able to defeat Magnus Carlsen, the world chess champion. When it finally seems like Carlsen is completely lost, he pulls his in-game move, and forces Damien's king in a very compromising position. While at this point, Magnus' opponent usually ends up crumbling, Damien is determined to win, and tries to threaten Magnus' king yet again. But Magnus is now bringing the game together, and has everything figured out, and ends up completely destroying Damien. Taking over a losing position. Well, it seems like Magnus Carlsen's match with Riviere was not the only time that Carlsen was too drunk to play the game of chess. There have been several other instances where Carlsen was clearly intoxicated, and yet he somehow managed to use his highly intellectual brain to successfully defeat his opponent, and stay true to his title of World Chess Champion. In 2021, Carlsen played a game of chess online where he was clearly too intoxicated.
Get me. So I cranked up and fell.
Even though Magnus' speech was slurred throughout the entire game, the part of his brain which dictates the moves he makes in chess seems to be completely functional. There were some instances when Magnus ended up making mistakes, and there was one point in the game where it seemed like he had lost the match, but he wouldn't be the world champion if he would just let the match slip away from him that easily. Magnus jumped right back in the game, determined to defeat his opponent and not give up. He then ended up making some pretty strategic moves, and while his opponent clearly had the upper hand initially, Magnus was able to show how a real world champion plays the game, and ended up bagging the victory for himself. Undefeated.
Not letting people get into ultra-theoretical positions. He just won this tournament, this online tournament, and he said he had a young player strategy.
Well, we guess whether he's drunk or entirely sober, defeating Magnus Carlsen is something that only happens once in a blue moon. And even if you're lucky enough to face Magnus Carlsen when his brain is not functioning at full capacity, there's no guarantee that you'll be able to beat him in a match of chess. He's the world champion for a reason. If you're someone who's an avid player of chess and is good at the game, let us know if you think Magnus Carlsen's game suffers or not when he's intoxicated. It's true that he does make a few mistakes along the way when he's drunk. But overall, if we look at the bigger picture and see the final result of the matches that he has played while being intoxicated, it seems like he does end up realizing his mistakes and makes a comeback that leaves his opponents in awe of his brilliance. Let us know in the comments below what you think about Magnus Carlsen's chess expertise.